because that's the time zone I'm in. But I see there are a lot of people indeed from other parts of the world. Thank you very much for taking the time to listening to this webinar today. Don't worry, this first sheet is the one with the most words on it. Every sheet coming after this will have much less words, and I will be talking a lot more as well. So I would first like to stress that what I'm going to present today was very much a team effort. I am a project lead for task 25, for which I will tell a bit more in a minute. I have a background in social sciences, behavioral studies, and transition studies, but I worked very closely together with the following people, amongst others, Renske Bouknecht from the service design company Ideate in the Netherlands, and Boukje Huiben, who is a researcher on business models at the Technical University in Eindhoven, and we had the pleasure of working with a master's student, Joost Tolkamp, who did a lot of beautiful work for us. And in addition, we have some very involved national experts in the participating countries. Some of them are online, I see. Welcome. So this was very much an interdisciplinary and an international collaborative effort, and I would like, again, to stress it. So let me introduce the work that I'm going to be presenting today a little bit. The IEA Task 25 is a task that focuses on finding out what type of innovative business models are out there that focus on delivering demand-side management and energy services, energy efficiency services. The task focuses on services that are provided business to business, business to consumers, but also business to consumers. And we focus very much on the SMEs and the communities being target groups. This task falls under the umbrella of the IEA DSM implementing agreement, or it's called differently today. I think it's called the Energy Collaboration Program. And the work that I will present today is very much work in progress. So I'm also very much looking forward to the Q&A and learning about your experiences and what type of focus that you would find interesting that we might be able to incorporate in the future work. Because our task only started a few months ago, officially a year ago, but the real work started a few months ago. And we still have 2 more years to collect a lot of data and turn all of that into actionable knowledge for market and policy. So today I will describe a little bit the premises of our task. So where do we come from, what do we aim to do and why, and also present to you some first business cases that we analyzed. And I know from experience that webinars can be really fast-paced, and you are able, as Hans already said, to revisit the recording and play back and pause. And I'm really sorry if I don't make sense at certain points. You can put a Q&A in, and I will try to see if I can monitor it in real time, but I can't promise anything though, but I will be able to address your issues in the Q&A. So given the title, which is about business models, I would like first to discuss 2 slides on business modeling. We use the business model canvas and the additional customer value canvas that was developed by Osterwolder and Pigneur as a starting point, but we do make a lot of changes to them based on findings so far and also some literature review that we did. The thing is that the business model canvas by Osterwolder and Pigneur is a beautiful tool to make a snapshot of a business model as it is, but it's static. So it does not really reflect the evolution of the business model. And this actually proved to be one of the key findings, that more responsive and flexible types of business models are potentially more successful in delivering energy efficiency services than those that are not. Another issue with this business model canvas is that it doesn't allow for an understanding of the interaction between the context of the business model and the business model itself. And as such, it's also really difficult to visualize how successful a business model is in working with or around context, which is the second key issue that I will address today as well. we found that those business models that are able to actually interact to some extent and fit and try to find the best possible stretch if they are more radical with the context are again those that tend to be a little bit more successful than those that do not do that. And finally, what we found is that this business model canvas does not really allow to understand the skills of the business or the entrepreneur developing the business and the proposition. And those skills are, again, one of the key issues that we need to take into account when we are trying to find out why certain business models are successful and others are not. And finally, we also need more room to characterize the interaction that the business model has with the end user. And certainly when we are talking about co-creation, this small box on relation between customer and business model developer is not sufficient. So to sum up, we have a lot of additional canvases to do the format, to do the analysis with. It's our own developed format. I do not have time to show all of these, but if you are interested, do feel free to contact us for more information. The second slide that you see now is the customer value canvas. This is an addition to the original canvas, and it was also developed by Osterwolde and Pinier because they found that the value proposition box in the original canvas was not sufficient to actually start understanding and grasping how a value should be developed and characterized and what kind of value matches best with the customer segment that you are targeting. So this is already a beautiful addition, and as said, we made many more. So let me start explaining why we started this task 25 at all. We had an observation that the current market for energy efficiency is actually quite fragmented. It's a very difficult market. There are many different technologies in different levels of maturity, and customers, I don't know if you ever tried to retrofit your home. We did. It's a nightmare. You don't know what to choose because there's so much out there which is incomparable. Well, if I would have to summarize, there is absolutely no unique buying reason for me as a customer to actually choose for energy efficiency. More importantly, another problem with this market is that it's dominated by products. And it's a market that uses very much a technology push approach where businesses actually develop an ID, you see the little drawing over there, and then develop a product, and then lastly, only then try to think about how to market and sell this product. This is a very product and technology push approach which might not be the best approach, but I will come back to that later, to actually create an uptake of energy efficiency. So what we wanted to do is develop a task that actually could positively contribute to the stimulation of this market uptake of energy efficiency. And our way to do so is as follows. We want to understand why a business model and the accompanying proposition, which is a product or a service or a combination, work or fail in a specific context. And we want to learn what needs to be changed to make them more effective. Our hypothesis is that this technology push approach that really dominates the current market does not always work. I'm not saying it's not good, because obviously there are many examples that demonstrate that it does work for certain types of products. But it doesn't always work. And to create a real uptake of energy efficiency, we potentially need businesses that understand what value customers actually want. So what you see on the drawing on the right side is that customers, and you are a customer as well, so you know this, you don't eat energy for the sake of eating electrons. You need energy to get another job done, whether it's to put a frame on the wall, that helps you remember a beautiful holiday or that helps you have beautiful memories framed. It doesn't matter. People usually are in need of a value delivered by energy and potentially then also energy efficiency that has potentially nothing to do with energy. So our task wants to investigate if those business models that try to focus on the value and delivering value are more effective in actually delivering energy efficiency than the more product-driven business models. But let me first discuss this contrast between products and services a little bit more. And as background information, we follow the thinkers Wargo and Losch in this perspective, and I really recommend reading their beautiful papers. So Wargo and Losch have coined this term of the product-driven or product-dominant logic. What this means is that there are a lot of business models out there that are product-driven and that are the results of what is called the product-dominant logic in the market. This is an approach that's very much focused on technology push, where energy efficiency is packaged as a product in a product, and the product is a means to sell energy efficiency. So think about new heating installation, insulation, etc. And very important in this approach is that the business and the business models linked to it is that the product is sold. So the customer becomes the owner. And the benefits of the energy efficiency products are defined in terms of CO2 reductions, square meters insulated, the achieved energy label jumps, etc. And the product is also very often, and that's also important as a distinction, a single technology. Sometimes it's coupled with a few others like double glazed windows and insulation for floor or cavity. But the real integration of technologies is not necessarily done by the supply side. It's left to the customer. And this type of business model is very traditional in the sense that it has a very traditional chain of supply partners focused on transactions, minimalization of costs, and the maximization of profit. So the end user in this type of approach and this type of business model is the entity that needs to take a take it or leave it decision. It's a one-off decision. And the focus of the business model is on getting the customer to take that decision. And in principle, after the decision has been taken, usually there is hardly any interaction with the customer anymore. And if there is, for example, energy retail, of course it's about retention of the customer or making sure the problems that the customer experiences are solved. The opposite of this product-dominant logic is what Wargo and Losch call the service-dominant logic. Let me first also discuss a little bit the definition of a service, because it's a very vague concept in a way. And I'm not going to help out in that sense, because the definition that I'm going to present now is still very vague, but I think you will get the feeling of it. A service is very much about providing a benefit to the receiver. So it's not so much about energy. The goal is to customize offerings and to recognize that the end user is always a co-producer, because the service actually only becomes valuable in its use. So product could already be valuable before it's being bought or leased. A service only becomes valuable once it's being used. And what you want to do actually when you're developing a service, considering that it's only becoming valuable in use, is to actually maximize the consumer involvement in the customization of this service in order to better fit whatever needs this customer might have. So a service is very often also much more continuous than a product delivery. It's a solution to a problem or a need, and this can be a problem or a need that's already experienced or not. But perhaps most importantly at this point is that those needs or those problems do not necessarily have to do anything directly with energy or energy efficiency. They can be needs or problems related to health or comfort or well-being or control or ease, name it. So what this definition of services actually stresses is that the service itself is not the goal, but it's a process that helps deliver the best possible outcome on the end user side. And as I said, the real value of a service only becomes apparent when it's being experienced and used. Because of that, you need co-creation, or at least a very user-centered approach in business modeling to deliver a really good service. There are a lot of businesses out there that preach to be user-centered or co-creating their services, but in practice, they do not practice what they preach. More about that later. What's also important to recognize is that co-creation is not only a means to make sure that your service is being customized to the real needs of the end user, but considering that the use of the service changes all the time, because there's nothing so changeable, I don't know even if that's an English word, but nothing changes as much almost as people using products, etc. Because their environment changes, their needs change. So actually the service needs to be responsive as well. And that means that the business model needs to be responsive and flexible as well. And that means that the business or the entrepreneur delivering the service needs to be responsive as well. And again, I'm not saying that you can't get a long way simply adding services to an already existing product and still use a product service push approach with a little bit of customer segmenting and some piloting, which is happening a lot out there in the current market. And in that approach, services are actually used instrumentally to push a product service combination. They're a means to an end. But what we are trying to analyze and find out is what we believe, namely that to create a real uptake of energy efficiency, you need real co-creation, and that will get you all the way towards upscaling. We think that business models and energy services that put the customer value in the use phase, so not the buying phase, but the use phase, center stage, are the next step in energy efficiency delivery. And as I said, that means that the business model and the business or entrepreneur and his or her skills also need to be responsive, flexible, context sensitive to be able to be proactive in customizing, ongoing customizing the service and the delivery. So a logical conclusion following from the previous two sheets about this transition from product to service dominant logic is probably that we would like to see more of this service dominant logic, right? Because that means that services and products are much better tailored to the actual needs of the end users. And we all know that if something really meets your needs and is meaningful, you want to actually buy it. So it has a unique buying reason. So who wants this old-fashioned product dominant logic? Well, that was our starting point, to be honest. We were thinking we need to go to this service dominant logic, and our task needs to find out how best to actually approach this transition. Obviously not only our task, we're just one of the very many small little pieces in this big transition. And it does seem that we are actually steering slowly towards this infusion of more service dominant types of business models in the market. But what we found is that actually you can't really say which of the two approaches is best for energy efficiency and meeting the needs of the sustainability transition or the energy transition, if I may use such a container word. There are many, many different strategies. I will name 4 of them by the end of my presentation that actually potentially each have a role to play in this transition and in the better uptake of energy efficiency in the market. And it's really important to start understanding what's going on in this transition and what factors play a role and which stakeholders play a role and how business models can be better tailored to actually work within this transition context. So let me give you a few first insights. I already named them, but I'm going to be a bit more detailed in the next few slides. What we do know is that to be successful, a business and the business model and the entrepreneur actually have to have alignment on three levels. Alignment of the business model with its environment, with the context and the relevant stakeholders, policy, regulation, institutions, but also technology developers, etc. There's also a need to have alignment of the skills of the business model developer or the entrepreneur that needs to be able to understand and work with this constantly changing context to be successful. And the skills to focus on the customer perspective and the skill to actually manage and deliver a process of co-creation is our belief and that of many others, increasingly important in creating future competitive market strategies. And lastly, what we found is that in the business models that we analyzed, those that were successful were consistent or coherent amongst their 9 building blocks. So if they were all more or less at the same pace in terms of where they stood between product or service approach, that was a good thing. If they weren't, there was a tension in the business model. And if there was a tension, that would create a problem in its delivery as well. So as said before, we are in a transition from product to service. And what you see here is that the transition is a movement. And a lot of different stakeholders and actors and factors change as well in more or less the same pace. But you also have a lot of differences. There are front runners, there are laggers, there are people who do not want to change, there are institutions that cannot change for whatever reason, and this creates a tension in the system. And it is a real issue for business models that try to align themselves with this context and that try to position themselves in this shift from product to service. And complicating the matter, of course, is the fact that a lot of the business developers and businesses do not have sufficient influence to actually change the behavior and the position of many of those stakeholders in the system. So, as I said, to be successful, there needs to be a certain fit or alignment between the business model and the different stakeholders. And what that would look like in the picture is that they are all more or less grouped and not dispersed across this arrow. The second thing that I already mentioned is the skills. There are a few researchers doing interesting work on this, namely Daniel Kinstrom and Christian Kowalkowski. And we very much build on their work. And what we found is that one of the most challenging issues is the skill to actually develop real value and practice real user-centeredness in your business model. As I said before, practicing as you preach is really problematic. So what that means in practice is that a core competence for a company that wants to be really good at service delivery is no longer the making of a specific product, but the core competence becomes the skill to master the process, and that's quite important. And master the process of co-creating and building up relationships with the end user throughout the use phase. And clearly, an important skill is also the skill to actually be able to manage the change in context and work with or around it. So responsiveness, and that's in particular work by Daniel Kinstrom. So skills of the entrepreneur are at least as important as the alignment of the business model with the context. And finally, what we found is that the business models, as I said before, where those 9 building blocks that you see here are not in love with each other in terms of where they stand and where they want to go in this transition from product to service delivery are the ones that face issues. A very clear example will follow in one of the two cases that I will present in a few minutes. So what we're actually doing in this task is trying to investigate many business models in several countries. We have 6 countries partners participating, and each of them is investigating 10 businesses business cases in detail. We have a long list of a few hundred of interesting propositions and business models, but we don't have time to review all of them. So we made a selection, and we focused on, at this point, at least 60 business models and propositions in the field of retrofitting, smart services, smart lighting, LED, namely smart heating. Think, for example, about the use of data service for heating residential buildings, and the total solutions, the integrated one-stop shop type of propositions, and not necessarily EPC or ESCO models. There are many different types of integrated total solutions. Today I will zoom in on 2 cases that we investigated in the Netherlands. The first case that I will give a snapshot of is Reimarkt. What Reimarkt actually is, in terms of value proposition, is that it's a total solution. It's a customized one-stop shop retail formula where you actually can buy a house or retrofitting for your home. Sorry, not a newly built home. But they don't sell it as such. What they do sell is a comfortable living, which is easy to choose and easy to understand. So Reimarkt is an intermediary, a one-stop shop where energy efficiency is an outcome and not a goal. At present, this business focuses mainly on business to consumer type of models, where they work closely with housing corporations. They are quite successful in that. They have quite a good customer base, and indirectly, that's where the business to consumer comes from. They focus actually on the tenants of those housing corporations and a few front runners in the homeowner private sector. They are partnering with, at this moment, mid-sized type of companies, namely family-owned companies, technology suppliers that are more prone and more open to experimenting with the integrated approach instead of the building block approach of single measures. And clearly they are also working or partnering with the housing corporations and the local government. Sorry, my clicker didn't work for a moment. In terms of activities that they deploy, that's an interesting aspect because it has nothing to do with retrofitting and it has nothing to do with energy efficiency. What they are actually putting in most effort is developing a database using open data about housing types, energy labels, and working closely with the housing corporation, the history in terms of retrofitting or measures being taken at the home. And they are building a database that allows to identify a limited set of homes in a certain city. And as such, what they are able to actually provide is a quote process where they do not have to come into the home, but remotely through the database know what type of home it is, what are the measures that would suit the home, including the metrics of the home, so the height, and the square meters, etc. This is actually one of the key elements of the innovativeness of this business model. The way they are communicating what they are doing and the value proposition that they have to their end users is through very local model homes. They started off with homes that had to be renovated where there were no tenants at all, but they very soon found out that people do not feel comfortable enough with that, and the next slide will discuss this a little bit more. And they are now using actually the tenants themselves to open up their homes to other tenants, not necessarily in the same neighborhood, but even across the city, to discuss the changes made to the home. It's very much an existing market, so they focus very much in terms of relationship. They use very traditional ways of communicating and relating to the housing corporation and the tenants. The revenue stream is very simple. It's a fee for every home that has been retrofitted, and the costs are mainly the personnel costs and the costs for technologies. In terms of resources, of course, we talk about networks, but also the fact that they had a lot of money built up in their company beforehand, and they could actually use a lot of that to do in-house R&D on this model. There's also a customer value canvas, and we have many more canvases, but I'm only able to give you a snapshot of this today. Very quickly going through this more extended customer value canvas, what we see is that Reimarkt actually focused its value proposition very much on the process of the quote. So the offer being made to the tenants, which was considered to be very cumbersome, difficult to compare with other quotes, very fragmented, also in terms of technologies, etc. So what they are actually providing is an easy to choose, no fuss, value for money, clear and trustworthy process. However, this is actually not how the business model looked like at the beginning. A lot of learnings were experienced by Reimarkt, and I'm going to discuss a few of them now. So here's the transition again. And what you will see is that we plot the business model against the position of the other relevant stakeholders and the factors to assess the alignment of the business model with the rest. So Reimarkt had first a business model that was very much out of sync or not aligned with crucial elements in the context. And it started to change. First, they found out that they actually were out of sync with the building market. Their first partners were really large builders, and they were very much focused on delivering a single technology and nothing integrated. So that was a real issue because in the end, Reimarkt hopes to be able to contribute to the zero energy building transition as well. So they had to start thinking about how to solve this, and several other issues played a role, and they started working with, as I said, these family-owned, mid-sized type of builders and suppliers. Which helped a lot was that the local governments that they were also partnering with actually demanded local builders to be involved in the system. Another, and potentially the biggest out of sync that Reimarkt experienced is that their first target customers were not the housing corporations or tenants, but private homeowners, and they did not value the initial proposition of comfortable life. Simple installation, that was potentially too little value to them to actually move, but comfortable living in a one-stop shop format, that was really too much of a stretch. And in particular, this database that I discussed before, which avoids the house visits as part of the quote process, was really too much for them. So we even have a quote where they say, a ready-made product for my home? That can't be right. You will come and measure everything, aren't you? So the value proposition changed, and it's no longer only comfortable living, but also an easy quote, easy process, and savings. Another out of sync or misalignment that they had was with the policy and regulations out there. There was actually no policy or subsidy that facilitated the more integrated type of solutions instead of single measures for energy efficiency. So they actually had to start looking for different ways of finding money to help their private homeowners or housing corporations fund the retrofitting. And they also found that the tenders that are being issued are very much focused on single products. So Reimarkt was actually just too innovative and went way beyond the goal that most local and national governments have, which is to simply increase the amount of insulated homes. The other case that we analyzed is called the Netherlands Insulates. And this business model is very much about the need to actually work with the context and just do better. So it's a low-hanging fruit type of business model. It's focused on insulation at lower cost. They are not really integrating. They are coupling a few of the insulating measures. They don't provide a home scan prior to the actual implementation either. They do it on the spot. They focus very much on the existing market. What they actually do better in that sense is that they have really made an effort at providing a service to make the process of implementing all of this much better. So it's a 2-hour, 3-hour job in the home, one day, simple quote, within 2 weeks you know what you have to pay, and actually what you have to pay is already known in advance. It's 650 euros. It's a single fix, the quote is understandable, and you end up with a warm foot, warm feet, and a warm house. And what they actually do is they use very local and repetitive campaigns. So they use the peer-to-peer approach and the mouth-to-mouth approach in a very clever way. And they are extremely successful in the Netherlands. They have already insulated tens of thousands homes. So based on our analyzed cases so far, and let me say we have, as I said, many more cases being processed at the moment and in much more detail than I'm able to present today. We have discussed this also with the DSM University and the Leonardo Academy, and the plan so far is that for each of the cases that we have, each business model, we will do a small webinar pre-recorded 5 to 7 minutes, so that you can very quickly become knowledgeable about a specific business model and hopefully be inspired or not, inspired to do differently. So based on our cases that we've analyzed so far, we found several strategies to fare in this transition. You have the conscious system changer, which is very much what, for example, in the Netherlands, Philips is doing with Light as a Service. What they are doing very cleverly is pilot on a very small scale with invited big players. So Deloitte, for example, is a customer, if I'm not mistaken. They are piloting Light as a Service where you don't own your light bulbs, but Philips delivers lux. And they are learning about it, and they are using this role modeling of these big companies to, as a strategy to upscale and reach tipping point in the future. And what they do very cleverly is build a new social norm through the peer-to-peer approach. So they are very consciously working towards a system that is aligned with their business model. They are actually trying to pull not so much the market, but the whole system towards their type of business model. You also have the unconscious system changer. The names are still work in progress as well, so if you have good ideas, please let me know. That's actually the Reimarkt that is really eager to be a system changer, but somehow is not sufficiently aware of how much aligned or misaligned the business model and the entrepreneur is with the actual system, and most importantly, the end user. So they need to learn a lot, and that's a pity in a way. And there are many more Reimarkts out there, although they are doing a great job. And let's be honest, their type of business models do create so many learnings for the business models coming after them. You also have the smart matcher. That's the Netherlands Insulates type of proposition. They don't have the ambition to become really radical. They just want to make maximum use of the market as it is, and they try to provide a service in an instrumental way to actually push a product. And then you have the stealth changers. Those are quite interesting types of business model strategies. In the Netherlands, the retailer Eneco is actually one of the examples that we have, where they have a smart thermostat that they first only deliver to their clients, and slowly they built up this customer base, and they started to implement more radical add-ons and services coupled to this smart thermostat. So now this thermostat is a home energy, a home management system, sorry, not energy system, also focusing on health and safety issues, for example. They are stretching the context a little bit too much. They've been receiving some penalties by regulation that stated that they should not have given their smart thermostat to their customers to begin with without a payment system in place. So that's also an interesting learning for us at least. Next steps for our task, we are going to analyze many more of the cases. I already said this is only a snapshot of some findings. We will deliver much more detailed case analysis, and they will be publicly available. So we will continue analyzing the mix and alignment of business models in this paradigm shift from product to service delivery, try to understand which type of business models fit really well and why, and which ones are transferable to other national contexts. And next year we will start doing a lot of workshopping and developing guidelines as well for both how to do business modeling in light of the learnings that we came up with, how to do business modeling in this paradigm shift from product to service delivery, and also, very importantly, what can stakeholders in the context, such as policymakers, investors, potentially do to facilitate the different strategies that we are identifying, because we truly believe that we need all of them to actually create a more sustainable energy system. So who are we? 6 countries or 6 partners, as I said. You also see Hans de Keulenaar, who introduced me today over there in a picture. We have Austria, the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, Switzerland, and the European Copper Initiative on board of this task. We are discussing participation with Canada, Ireland, and South Korea, and we are very much open to any more partners or countries that would like to participate in this effort. So please contact us if you have any questions, or if you would like to join this. Thank you very much, and I'm looking very much